Hello, I'm CyberAxe with Outlandishly Crafted, and today we're going to talk about cameras and intros and how to do some of those things. So let's start off with a few things. This is Emoji Pets, and you can pick it up in the marketplace right now. I didn't make this game. I did do the intro and the training that you're going to see. But I didn't make the actual game backend and stuff. That was made by someone else. I just came in to make this fancy intro system, and I'd like to show you how that intro system works today. I'm going to put a little disclaimer on this and say I built this a year ago, and I haven't done any Minecraft development in about 5 months. I'm doing Unreal 5 development right now, and so I might be a little rusty. I might not be correct. I could be wrong. I don't know. But I want to get this out there so you guys at least have the opportunity to see how I did it, what I did. Sorry it's taken so long, but it took about 8 months for this to get to marketplace, or 10 months to get to marketplace, to go through everything, and so we're a little behind. So definitely check out the game, and let's get started with what we're talking about. So I'm in the game. I come up to this guy. I'm going to click on him, and I'm going to do see the city. So I click here, and you can see we get a nice title screen come across. We get a sneak to skip, so we could skip all of this. We do not have a title bar at the bottom, or a toolbar at the bottom, and the screen is completely blank. Again, we do a different view from a different corner. So we looked at the whole area from one side. Now we flipped to the opposite side. And so we're getting a good, nice, smooth view. And then it drops us back where we were and then makes us viewable again. Now let's do that one more time from first person. Well, actually, let's do it from this view, if I can work out the logic for that. Like I said, I have not been playing Minecraft either. So now we're looking at us, and you can see that we aren't there, which is nice. We're just invisible. But you don't see a blinking icon on the side. I might not show how I did all of this today. If you'd like to have more, some of that I probably just can't remember how I did it without going and looking at the code specifically. So if there's something that you see that I did that you want to know, put it in the comments, and I'll make a guide for that specific thing, because there is a lot going on here in the background. So same thing you can see even in first person. One, the music stops and resets. That's a nice thing. You should always do that. Make sure that when you're doing an intro that your music clears out and then resets at the beginning. That also helps with your timing, so you can time the music to the next intro or the next visual. One more thing, you can see that I can still look up and down, but I can't look left or right. And then if I sneak or jump or do any movement, you can see it just returns me back to where I was. So next, we could talk to him. He has getting started. He's got see the credits, and he's got like a getting started thing. Okay, so let's jump over. Woo, my sensitivity is high. And let's talk to this guy. And these are just NPC chat dialogues. So we're going to do C pipes. We're going to use the same logic, but we're just doing a different scene. Also, really quick, this isn't the final game that I'm showing you. This is just my last development version. And so the game that you play for the marketplace could be different, could be changed. I don't know. I haven't gone through the whole game. I've only seen the first parts and stuff. So something just to keep in mind, that this is the development version, so this isn't the final. So there you go. You see we do the same thing here. And then he asks us to do stuff. So we gotta do what he asks us to do. So we start the task. He pops up the stuff, and then we run around. Man, my sensitivity is just so high. I'm on a different computer than I made all of this, so like I said, I haven't played Minecraft on this system before, so this is my Unreal Engine development computer. Okay, so I did all of this stuff, and now it's just automatically, after it gives you time to read everything, going to kick us into the next view. So now we've jumped over to another part and we're doing a zoom out. It's nice and smooth. I think that's the biggest thing everybody asks for, is that nice and smooth. And then you can also see how it just nicely dropped us down to the ground and gave us a nice interaction there. So I can go up and oh my goodness, like I said, it's been a year. Do I hit it? Oh, there we go. I was hitting the wrong place. Okay. And then we keep following. This is just a particle. It's just a particle line pointed to the right place. So, oh, no big deal. I got to talk to this guy. So that's something that always can help out your players, by putting in this just nice simple little particle line. I just customize it for each stage. Makes it really easy. Okay, same thing. He gave me someone to put down. I put him down. I click, put a hat on him, pick him up. I finish the task. I can crouch to make the little emote will do some tricks for me, and then it kicks me into the next. And so now this is the side. Same thing. I can look up and down, but I can't look right and left. And this is just giving us a nice, beautiful side camera view. And then we flip over to the other side. Now this one's a little tilted because they wanted to show, and then I think we moved it out of the way of that tree too. But that just shows like how it moves, and it just in essence is moving from part of the city to the other. So let's get into the code and look at what's actually going on behind the scenes and how we're doing it. So what's happening right off the bat is, when we interact with the players, let's go to, so the very first one that's easy is this guy. So we interact with him and we have C City. And so what that's doing is it's starting a particle timer, starting the intro on the player. So anybody within 5 radius, it's firing this event, and we'll go look at that event in a minute. It's removing the particle timer, and then it's starting a scoreboard to manage the music, so the music stops and resets. The people that set this up use command blocks for everything, and so it was just kind of a mess because the music just loops constantly over and over, and it would get in the way of the intro. And so I'm just using a scoreboard to stop the music and give it like a state that it's in. So the biggest thing happening right here is the intro state is starting against the player. And then you can see on the second one, this is an interesting statement that website is supported. That's odd. You can see in the second one that I'm just starting the second stage. So all of these are just events that I'm firing, or a function that I'm firing inside the player. So if we jump now over to Bridge, which is, I use Bridge version 1. You do anything, it doesn't matter. This is just easier for me to do and manage everything and not have to do JSON. So right off the bat, let's start with the player. The player is in a variant, and when we start stage 0, we're firing an event, and the event is turning off one component and turning on the other. So it's just creating a game loop of off and on into stage 1. So now that we're in stage 1, we're at variant 1000, and in here we're using BPACs. So we have a BPAC set up for each of these, and we're having those run the logic. So when we, let me grab the stage 0. So say hello. When we flip to stage 0, we stop the music for everybody. We add the tag in for anti-cheat. The tag for anti-cheat is pretty much keeping the player from spamming the system and getting a free emote. So once they've done it once, it adds the tag so they can't just keep cycling through the system. So a few more things we're going to do. We're going to move the player to the start coordinates, and then we're going to set up the camera to start moving. So we want to change the time because we want to control what the weather and the daylight look like, so we're not doing an intro during night or doing an intro during a weather storm. So we're going to start with that. We're going to start the music playing. We're going to change the game rules and turn off the command block output. We're going to change the game rules and turn off the feedback stuff because we're doing some things in the background, and we're going to turn off coordinate system. How I'm controlling that toolbar and getting a true intro with nothing on the screen is I'm flipping us to creative mode, and in creative mode I've modified the UV file so that when the coordinates are not being shown, the toolbar also isn't shown. So when the coordinates are being shown, the toolbar shows. So it just gives me a way to now have a flag and a trigger for when I want the toolbar to be shown in cinematic mode and when I don't want the toolbar to be shown in cinematic mode. So here we're controlling that. So the first thing we're doing is we're turning off all of the notifications to the player so they're not getting the notifications that we're doing all of the stuff in the background. We don't want them to know that they're in creative mode. So we're kicking them to creative mode. Now we're teleporting them to the right location, and this is the location where the camera is. So the camera is a physical entity. We have a camera at that location. We're teleporting the player to the location, and then we're telling the player to ride the camera. So we're putting the player on the camera itself. Then we're TPing the camera facing the direction that we want. So we have the player in the right mode. We have the player in the right position. We've got the player riding the camera. And now we've got the camera in the right position facing the right direction. So we have, think about this as a movie. We're doing cinematic. So we have everybody in their position and we're ready to start the take. And then we're going to kick up the title onto the screen and give the text on the screen, and then we're going to start the animation timer, and the animation timer is just counting in the background how long do we want to ride the camera. So how high are we going to go on this ride? That gives you the ability to customize the experience how you want. If you want to ride it for 1 second or you want to ride it for 10 seconds, it doesn't matter. This gives you that ability. And then we're going to trigger the stage 1 when we're not writing anymore. So when the way to stop everything that's happening is to get off, and that's the skip. So if the player at any time tries to move or jump or crouch or do anything that would unride an entity, then they're going to be kicked off of that entity, and it's going to trigger a skip, which is going to teleport them back to their original position, stop the camera, and start the timer to delete the camera. If the camera finishes, so the camera gets all the way to where it's supposed to go, then it's going to trigger move to the next stage, and that's sending us to that second camera view. So we're doing exactly the same thing. We're just doing it on the opposite side of the map. So we have we start from the bottom, we go all the way up. We start from the bottom on the opposite map, and then we go all the way up. So we have 2 camera shots, cinematic shot 1, cinematic shot 2, and we play those. Now, we don't want to play the text on the second one. We could play a second set of text. So if we wanted to have developed by or produced by or in production with, that's where we'd put in the second set of tags. Think about this as the entry of a movie. So you have a AAA movie, and this is the intro to your movie as your or a AAA game, and this is the intro to the game, and you have who created it and who it's produced by, and show off these fancy scenes. So we do that. Same thing if they get off, if they stop writing, then we stop the whole thing. If they don't and it finishes, then we're going to finish the stages and we're going to kick them. We're going to stop the whole thing. So we're going to go back to survival mode. We're going to turn coordinates back on so that in creative mode, the toolbar shows up, because we don't want the customer or the player to ever want to be in creative mode and then not have a toolbar and think it's a bug and be flipped out. So we're always turning the coordinates back on so that the player always has a toolbar. Chances of the player going and turning the coordinates off in a marketplace game like this when they're in creative mode is almost none. It's just very unlikely case, and so that's the lowest use case where we could stick this feature. And then we go through the process of doing some slow fall effect. So when we drop the player off, we drop them just a few feet above the ground, give them slow fall, so they have that nice like being set down feel. We face them towards the right direction. We end the event on the player, so we fire in stage 0. We fire the function to end stage 0 for everything else happening and all the other stuff, and then we kill the camera that we were writing so that it doesn't take performance up or keep flying off into the sky. And then we go back to variant 0 saying we're done. So we're back to stopped. So in essence, this is the entire thought process of intro stage 0 for the player. So this is how to make it really nice and smooth and clean and fancy. And I might just post these files so that you can see them in there. So let's jump over to what is the camera doing? How are we getting that really smooth flowing intro camera, which is the big thing that everybody wants? Most people don't believe that I'm using a teleport command or a teleport logic loop to make this happen. So let's go look at that first. Right off the bat, here's the camera entity itself. So I have a camera for each direction, and you could have a camera that rotates. You could have a camera that you could have them do multiple things, but it's easier for me to have a different one for each thing. So here's camera forward. It has a same thing. It has a BPAC running when it has a writer. That's when it starts moving, and then it has a timer controlling its hold periods. So who is it? And then we have collision box, movement. It doesn't have gravity. We don't want gravity, so we don't want it to fall. If you're not aware, when the player is writing an entity, it's the entity's gravity that matters. So you can negate the player's gravity by having the player write an entity that's writing an entity. So if you want to make a swing, or you want to make, like I have it to where you can water ski behind dragon, so you can have a player flying the dragon while you're on a water ski being pulled by the dragon on a lead. The way we mitigate your gravity so you can do that is by having the player write an entity that's writing an entity. So on the second entity writing, it cancels out the first entity, the player's gravity system, and only uses the second entity's gravity. So that's one way that you can mitigate some of these things if you want to do more advanced concepts. So let's get into, we have the player is writable. If the player stops writing, then we add a death timer and it kills the camera. So you saw in this one that we kill the camera if everything finishes, but what if the player gets off early? If the player gets off early, then we just have the camera kill itself. And then we have an entity sensor to detect that. We have instant despawning, so we're not getting the death animation. We have a timer to kill itself silently, and then we have some effects, and that's that blindness like you're opening your eyes. I'm just trying to cover up the teleport. So when you move into the intro, the first thing happens is that I blind you for 1 second with 1 level blindness, and then that comes off and you see kind of like you're opening your eyes, and it just gives a little bit better effect. That's being applied by the camera when it spawns in. Let's see. And then we get into the animation controller. So I built the animation controller to be able to do all of the things I wanted, but when I actually went in and made it in the game and used it, I ended up only using one direction, typically per animation controller. So I built this to go up and down. I even built one that could go left and right and rotate and do all of it in one. But when I actually ended up using it for simplicity's sake and for what actually worked well in the game and in multiplayer, sadly, I ended up breaking these down to be a little bit more basic. So when the camera, this is the camera, so when you're riding the camera moves up. It's just that simple. So when the camera's ridden, he moves. What does move mean? Move means that he teleports himself 0.025 on a timer, on this hold timer. So we teleport the camera. Well, the camera has the rider on it, so the player's on the camera. So we only have to teleport the camera. We teleport the camera. This small amount, do you see how small this amount is? This small amount, and then we do it again, and we do it again, and we do it again, and we do it really fast. And the reason why we're doing it like that is because that's how you get the smoothness, because you have to think in ticks. We're not thinking in seconds, because a second is 20 server ticks, but it could be 60 frames for the player. And so we need to think about how can we move this in microseconds or ticks, and that's what we're doing here is we're breaking this down to a very small number, and we're doing this really, really, really fast. And we're just going really fast, and you can control this to make it how you want it. So say you want to move faster further, you can control that. You can just tweak those numbers so that you can move 1 block per second, and it'd give a more choppy effect. Or you can move right now we're doing a 1/4 block per second. So that's the kind of thought process that you want to think through. And let's go look at what the camera hold is. So right now we're doing 0.01. So it gives you an idea of how fast. So every 0.01 of a second, this is running this loop. So it's going TP, 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 really, really fast, and that's what's giving you that smoothness. And you just kind of have to work out how to get that in your game to function depending on what you're doing. But these numbers work out really well for me. You can see some of them I did 0.25, and it just depends on which one. This one I even went down to 0.005 because when you're moving forward, it feels different. And so those are the timers that you're using in the background to control your loop. Really quick, just to run through, what is this animation controller? We say it's a BPAC. Just if you've never used one, it's just a state machine. So everywhere that anything you do in game development is serial, which means it goes from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 and so on. And so this is just a state machine that says goes from 0 to 1 and then back to 0, 0 to 1, back to 0 until something happens. In this case, the until something happens is the entire animation finishes. And when the entire animation finishes, this timer then move on to the next stage. And when this stage is finished, look and see what this transition says and these queries are. So if this finishes and all this is done and this is played out, then we want you to move to this stage, and just so on. And this is called a game loop. So this is your game logic. So you have your game state. We're at state 0. We default to stopped, which is here. When we hear that that this variant has changed because we're listening for it with this query, then we're going to say hello and we're going to do this stage. And then when we hear that this is done here, this timer's finished, then we're going to go to this stage. And the timer is just controlling how long the stage is. So this is a 15-second stage. So let's go back to the game. Let's talk to this guy. And let's do C City. And this is 15 seconds for both of these views. And so it's the if you didn't have the timer in there and say stop at the end of the timer, then it would just continue to rise forever. Because you can literally go forever. Like you could just rise and rise and rise and rise for months. You could just keep going, and so it never stopped. So this is saying, okay, we're in this state, we're in this state, we're in this state. Okay, we got to the timer's done. We're now done with the state, and then run the next state, and then in this case we reset so that we could run the state again. So we could go back to 0, the music stops, and we do that loop again. That's the entire thing that's happening with any of this, is we're just running a loop, and the teleporter is in a loop. And so if you wanted to create a camera that could fly across the entire map of your world, and it would just automate, it would just fly forever, then you would just do this. You would set up a BP animation loop. It would teleport you forward X amount of distance every 0.01 of a second, and it would do that for eternity. It would just fly and fly and fly and keep teleporting you forever until you put in a query or something that says stop. And there's no reason why you couldn't then say TP this way and rotate. Now, I didn't put any of those in the game because it's hard to get those to not be choppy or to have issues. So I chose to only go up and down and side to side. But there's no reason why you couldn't do a full 360. It just take longer to do, and you'd have to just do a little bit more work to try to smooth it out. But that's really all that's going on here. I'm not going to talk about like the training and this type of stuff. If you'd like a guide on that, I can definitely do a dialogue guide and how to set up dialogue and entity and set up the events and all of that stuff. But for the most part, this is really what it is. Because the entity is writing, because you as the player writing the camera, and the camera is an entity, you can control how the player, the writer, can look. So I've just locked the writer's view while it's writing. So the player's view is locked while it's writing, and that's just in the writing component. So that's another simple one there. And yeah, that's really it. That's the whole way to do all of these fancy things. I will throw up on the Blockbench and Bedrock Discord channel. There's a Blockbench help, and I have a knowledge sharing with CyberAxe thread there. I'll put these files, some of these files in there, so you can go get them from there. If you're really looking for, you can just take them from the screen captures. But I hope that helps. I'm CyberAxe with Outlandishly Crafted, and this has been a guide to intros and cinematics and cameras in Minecraft Bedrock Edition. None of this was experimental features, and once again, I haven't done any of this for quite a while, so this could be old. There might be better ways to do it, but this is how I do it. Check out Emoji Pets. That's from one of the partners I work with, and check out my Dragonfire stuff. And if you'd like to help us, or this has helped you or your studio, please support us on Patreon so we can keep doing this stuff and make more guides, and we could definitely use the funding going forward. So thank you so much. Check out our website at Outlandishly Crafted, and once again, I'm CyberAxe. Thanks for watching.